Hey everybody, you're watching ABC News. I'm John Santucci in Washington alongside Justin Fischel. It has been the week-long battle for Judge Kavanaugh. We're going to jump into that in just a second, but we're going to begin with that bombshell report first reported by the New York Times and confirmed by ABC News that there is a major crisis right now over the Department of Justice, and it involves Rod Rosenstein. So we were talking about this earlier, Justin. Yeah. The New York Times story, and we've now confirmed, as I said, is breaking this down. What they're saying, and what we've now also reported, is that it was during conversations that Rosenstein had with the acting director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe, that he was encouraging McCabe and or others to wear a wire in their dealings with President Trump. And the big one is that it was Rosenstein that was suggesting an idea, allegedly, to invoke the 25th Amendment, and he believed that he could get two members of the president's cabinet on board, Jeff Sessions and John Kelly.
None of this actually came to fruition, obviously, but it's clear that Rosenstein, from this reporting, was totally freaked out about the idea that the president used that memo that Rosenstein drafted as his full justification for firing Comey. I think Rosenstein knew that wasn't the only reason he fired Comey. He was really freaked out that it was pinned on him completely. And then he, started, apparently, he started throwing out ideas like, well, he didn't like the way he was doing the interviews to replace Comey. He didn't think he was taking seriously. He said, someone should go in there and wear a wire. Yeah. Now, he says he wasn't being serious about that whole thing. In fact, he's presenting it more as of a joke.
Yeah, and one source actually present for one of those meetings told ABC News that they believed that it was a joke, thought it was in jest, is what this source told Mike Levine. As we just follow this, though, I mean, it is certainly ammunition right at this moment that if the president wants to go after the DOJ, go after Jeff Sessions, go after Rod Rosenstein, this could be seen as a
and I'm
right
curious
away.
What you think about this, because as we know, he does not need a lot more ammo to attack his Justice Department officials. He's had big hang-ups with Rosenstein so far over approving these FISA warrants. Yeah. You'll remember that Joe DeGenova and a number of the president's allies were encouraging him to fire Rosenstein after he approved the Cohen raid. I mean, the president was really upset about that at the time. So that's the big question. Yeah. What's he going to do?
Well, it's totally, and I just want to point out, though, we've obtained this statement from Rod Rosenstein via the DOJ, and he is flatly denying the allegations that are in this story, saying that he never had any understanding of this, said the Times story is completely inaccurate, factually incorrect. I will not further comment on a story based on anonymous sources who are obviously biased against the department and are advancing their own personal agenda.
John, can I just say, yes, it is a denial. It's not a categorical denial. I mean, he could have gone out there and say, I didn't talk about invoking the 25th Amendment.
Well, and he does say, though, but let me be clear, there's no basis for invoking it.
But it's one of these traps
trying to save the job, for sure.
It's one of these traps that they fall into without that explicit categorical denial. It raises some doubt. We saw that. I mean, I remember. I always go back to Rex Tillerson, who was not able to deny the moron comment, and without that clear and explicit denial, it can backfire.
100%. I do want to bring in ABC's Jordan Phelps on this topic. And Jordan, I think we all remember, it does feel like every day the president's attacking the DOJ, but it was a statement he made earlier this week in an interview that he said, I don't have an attorney general, referring to Jeff Sessions.
Yeah, and of course we see the president go after his attorney general on a regular basis. We don't see him directly go after Rosenstein the way he does Sessions, but presumably he's upset with his entire leadership at the Justice Department. But this is significant because all this new reporting comes at a time when this president is, as you've noted, is extremely frustrated with this Justice Department. So this really adds ammo to that. Just last night at a Trump rally, the president kind of asked the crowd, sarcastically, what do you think of how our Justice Department is doing? Now, we have reached out to the White House for reaction to this report. So far, they are silent. But John, the day is young. We have another Trump rally ahead of us tonight, so stay tuned.
Well, and I mean, already, Jordan, we're seeing, loyalists for the president come out on both sides of this. I do want to show his eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., who always wages into this war in defense of his father, is tweeting a little earlier saying, shocked, absolutely shocked. Oh, who are we kidding at this point? No one is shocked at these guys. Would do anything in their power to undermine real Donald Trump. But on the flip side of that, another voice in the president's ear quite often, Lindsey Graham, is saying when it comes to President Trump, beware of anything from the New York Times. And again, I just want to be clear, because the Times is actually currently retweeting ABC's reporting, we have matched a large part of that story from multiple sources.
I don't know what Lindsey Graham is really getting at there. I think that what we're going to see is the recommendations to fire him pile up. Again, we've mentioned a few. Laura Ingraham being one of them.
Yep.
But he's got a big decision to make here.
Sure.
And if he does fire Rosenstein, what I find really interesting is what happens, who's next in line. And since they don't have a number 3
well,
right now.
that's just it. The succession's totally confusing.
There's this, the Solicitor General is actually next in line, Noel Francisco. And it's not entirely clear that he would be more easily swayed by the president's opinions about the FISAs and the Russian investigation, be more of a hawk that the president wants. So it's not. It's a big political risk to fire Rosenstein. I mean, the replacement might not be exactly what he wants.
A lot here. For all the latest on this, you can go to abcnews.com right now. We have a full story up on the site from the team. We'll have much more of it tonight on World News Tonight with David Muir, Pierre Thomas leading our coverage on that. I do want to move on, though, because it has been the week of Judge Kavanaugh. What is happening up on Capitol Hill? It sounds like every second we're getting a development. We're not sure where this is going right now, but I do want to bring in someone that knows a heck of a lot about us combined times 2. And that's our colleague Trish Turner. She's been following this from the get-go. She was there for the multiple hours of confirmation hearings, and potentially, Trish, more hearings next week.
Oh, joy. That's what we all want. Yeah, so it's been a week full of Kavanaugh. That's true. We are stalking the halls for every development, and it seems like the developments change moment to moment. So, the latest is that Republicans, after a conference call together, committee Republicans this morning, they decided to make what essentially is being called a counteroffer to Dr. Ford and her attorneys, through her attorneys. So she apparently suffers from claustrophobia, we understand, and so she is driving from California to D.C. This, we're told, is a bit part of the trauma that she claims to have suffered from this incident 36 years ago. So anyway, so Republicans have said, look, we want you to appear instead of Thursday, the way her lawyers had presented. They want Republicans want her to appear on Wednesday. They're anxious to get this moving. In fact, we heard from the majority leader today. It's time for a vote. He's ready to get this going.
Well, and one of those Republicans that really wants to get it moving is the president. He spoke to Fox News' Sean Hannity last night. Let's take a listen to what he had to say.
To see what's going on is just very, very sad. You say, why didn't somebody call the FBI 36 years ago? I mean, you could also say, when did this all happen? What's going on?
Now, he's even come out stronger since that exchange with Hannity. He tweeted early this morning, even saying, Justin, that if there are any documents, records about this, put them out there. And even went as far as to say that, invoking her loving parents.
Okay,
I mean,
so
this definitely ratcheted up to a level that we hadn't seen.
The tweet is actually part of one of the fact check that I'm doing today. He says, quote, I have no doubt that if the attack on Dr. Ford was as bad as she says, charges would have been made, immediately been filed with law enforcement authorities or by her loving parents. He should have doubt that a 15-year-old girl would not muster the courage to file a complaint with the police after being sexually assaulted, allegedly. She, the Bureau of Justice Statistics said that 65% of sexual assaults go unreported. Only 23% of sexual assaults or rapes were reported to police in 2016. This is not a given. And the president weighed in on this in a really powerful way, and it's not going over well.
Yeah, no, not at all. And Trish, just before we wrap up here on this topic, I mean, the other thing we saw today here in Washington was a large group of women that have worked with the judge, both in his career on the bench, in the Bush White House, coming to his defense.
That's right. At one point, to what Trump has raised a lot of ire. He's raised the ire of one very important senator, Susan Collins. She was really quite taken aback with the president's tweet and his comments. So he's on dangerous ground. She's a critical vote for him. But the women, I went to this event, the women led by Sarah Fagan, who was a political director in the Bush administration. She worked with Brett Kavanaugh there.
Right.
It was a powerful group of women. They have known him since high school. One even dated him briefly, she said, in college. They've known him they're still friends with him. I mean, it really was pretty powerful. Some of them were on the edge of tears. Those who were, still his close friends. They just said he's a moral model of a dad, a husband, a friend. He's, stepped into the lurch for them so many times. They just don't think there's any conceivable way that Brett Kavanaugh could have done what he's accused of.
And Jordan Phelps, before we move on, I mean, over at the White House right now, there is lockstep support, both the president's team inside a 1600 and on the outside, right behind Brett Kavanaugh. They're not backing down.
They're definitely behind Brett Kavanaugh, but the president today notably broke from a strategy that a source tells us he privately had brokered with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. McConnell had privately requested that the president, according to this source, stay out of this and not go after Kavanaugh's accuser. But what we saw today with these tweets from the president, when he directly named Blasey Ford for the first time, the president has broken with that strategy. The strategy of restraint is no more. This president is showing that he's ready to go out and fight for his nominee. One thing that has changed since yesterday is that we now know that Blasey Ford is in negotiations with the Senate to set the terms for possible testimony. So the president is seeing that his nominee could really be threatened here. And we know that this president, when his back's up against a wall, he fights back. And that's what it appears he's doing now. So the tweets we saw this morning were a break from the strategy of prior. But I bet you, John, that's going to be what we're seeing from the president from here on through the rest of this nomination battle.
And Jordan Phelps, thank you for that. We do want to move on, though, before we leave everybody, and that is just, the crazy week that we already know we have with the Kavanaugh stuff. But, I mean, we've got 46 days in the midterms of today, but next week, a busy week for the president and a lot of fun if you're in the city of New York in traffic, and that is the UN General Assembly starting.
That's right.
He's got a busy week up there at UNGA.
He does. He's got, first of all, he's chairing the Council on Iran, and that's a big deal for him.
He tweeted about that.
He's tweeting about that. He's got major negotiations ongoing with North, South Korea, and China. Kim Jong-un is asking for another summit. There's a lot going on in the world. Syria is not over. There are a number of things on his plate that week.
And the other thing we have to look forward to maybe today, we're always waiting on Fridays anxiously for Fact Check Official Friday. I mean, is that, are we?
We're just doing one fact check this week, and it's about
one.
Yeah, I'm
what
doing
happened?
one. Well, look, I call him when I see him, and I'm not making things up here. And it is, however, on the issue of sexual assault.
I think you were lazy this week, but we'll move on.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Briefing Room. For Justin Fischel, I'm John Santucci. Make sure to download the ABC News app for any news anytime. You are watching. You want to take this?
The Briefing Room.
No, ABC News.
Yeah. ABC News, The Briefing Room.